Hey, 5th to 12th graders! Want to learn more about cybersecurity, participate in fun challenges, and have fun while doing it? Join us at Cyber Saturday on May 2nd at the Technology Advancement Center. Hosted by the National Cryptologic Foundation and TAC, this exciting event features guest speakers, hands-on activities like Capture the Flag with Virginia Tech's U.S. Cyber Range, Escape Room in a Box, Rubik's Cube encryption, free lunch, my favorite, swag, and more. High school students can also apply for the exclusive Cyber Elite track with our favorite BSI Lab. If you're interested, registration is open now. Join us at Cyber Saturday where you can learn cyber, build skills, and level up your future. See you there. Welcome to Cyber Chats, a podcast made by the National Cryptologic Foundation. I'm your host, Kennedy Taylor, and together we'll be demystifying the world of cybersecurity by talking with amazing cyber enthusiasts like you, as well as industry professionals. Be sure to like and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast platform. To celebrate Women's History Month, we're re-airing one of my favorite panel conversations from last year. This episode brings together 3 inspiring women in cybersecurity who share their journeys, lessons learned, and perspectives on leadership, innovation, and somehow balancing it all in this fast-moving field. It's a conversation that still resonates today, and I'm excited for you to hear it or revisit it with us. Let's jump in. Well, welcome back to Cyber Chats. Today we have a very special episode for you. It is Women's History Month, and today we have a panel of incredible women that are here to share their stories to inspire you. Do you mind going around and sharing your name and what you do?
I'm Renata Spinks. I am the former Deputy CIO of the United States Marine Corps and Chief Information Security Officer. And now I spend a lot of my days running my own cybersecurity operations company. Happy to be here.
I'm Georgianna Shea. I go by George. It's a little easier to say and to remember. I'm the chief technologist for a think tank in the DC area called FDD, Foundations for Defense of Democracies. And I've been in the computer network operations, cyber security world now for about almost 30 years.
And I'm Daria Bahrami. I was previously a technical advisor to DARPA's AI Cyber Challenge. I am currently in between gigs, so I'm enjoying a little bit of downtime, but still actively reading up on cyber and tech policy and emerging threats in the field.
Incredible. What an amazing group of women. Could you share a little bit about your journey into cybersecurity and what even motivated you to pursue a career in this male-dominated field? And we can go in order of how we started.
Sure. I probably took all around the mulberry bush in my career. But my initial interest started with computers and then curiosity from there. But what really dove me into cybersecurity versus, software development or something like that was I got a chance very early in my career to spend time in human trafficking and child exploitation investigations. And as a criminal research specialist, my job was to extract information from credit card data and then try to find patterns and anomalies that would make someone think the credit card number was stolen. And it was in support of investigating the movement of children or women into different areas. And it was this technique called follow the money. And so I got really great at extracting information, exporting using many different tools. And I liked it, but the investigation side kind of took a toll on me, and I got introduced to the other sides of the forensics, and that was more of intrusion detection, using different systems different tools to protect our systems. And so while combating human trafficking, child exploitation is still close to my heart, and I still work in that field because that is where I truly got my foundation of wanting to work in cybersecurity. That is more of something that I continue to do as a volunteer with my nonprofit that I started. But on my day-to-day, I am chasing the bad guy and trying to keep them from doing bad things to great people. So thanks.
All right. I'll jump in with how I got into cybersecurity. Although when I got in, it wasn't cybersecurity; it was computer network operations. So I don't think the cybersecurity term was official until 2015 in my circles. There was rumblings of the word, but it wasn't official and didn't come into DARPA until 2015. So back in the late 90s, I enlisted in the Army right out of high school, and I was in the Signal Corps doing technical radio stuff, communications security. Got out of the Army after 4 years, went to school, and I honestly didn't really know what jobs there were that I wanted to do. I was good in math, much like Renata was just saying, the analytical piece of it. I'm very analytical. I like the data piece of things. So I ended up taking all the math courses at college. I was a math minor, and that really translated into a computer science degree, because all the math, for the math degree, you required programming and computer science courses. So I did that, ended up getting a bachelor's in computer science because, again, I just didn't have the understanding of what do you do with a math degree besides being a math teacher. I just didn't know at the time. But in the computer science world, there seemed to be a lot of opportunity. So I ended up going that route. And then just before I graduated, I became one of the first analysts at the Army's Computer Emergency Response Team in PACOM. So, again, with the analysis, looking at data, looking for the bad guys, looking for anomalies, it was very, very fun. It was great, and I enjoy the warfare aspects of it.
I did not have a technical background when I wanted to get into cyber, so I definitely had to poke around a little bit, but I studied politics and security roughly as an undergrad. And I remember very distinctly when I decided to focus on security, there were courses in military, cyber, and space operations. I got to read doctrine and figure out how we've structured all of our defense operations generally. And I had a couple advisors suggest that I pursue law. And I didn't want to do that because I'm not academically inclined. And I knew that would require many more years of reading and testing that I just was not up for. But I have a passion for our national security. And I pushed for it despite some resistance. And funnily enough, I could not get a job in the space. I tried really hard multiple times to break in through the military, through the intelligence community, and there were many almost opportunities, but for a variety of reasons, they were never quite the right fit for me. And I had to learn to make peace with that pretty early, but I still had an itch. So while I kept pursuing this career path, I ended up at National Geographic, and I worked on their fundraising team. So very unexpected pivot from my educational background, but I decided to make the most of it. And I still applied for cyber jobs in the background, tried to see where I might land, but I used my time in fundraising to focus on communications, partnership building, and figuring out all of those relational aspects of the workspace that are hard to learn in a classroom. And I'm very, very grateful for that experience because I finally landed at a think tank as a program manager for their cybersecurity portfolio. And it was the most rewarding jump that I think I've ever experienced. And I do think for those who are interested, just don't give up. If you decide it's what you want to do, if you decide you care about it, just wait for the right door to open its way to you. And you might be surprised. The roundabout way can sometimes be the most entertaining.
Hi, cyber friends. Want to put your cybersecurity skills to the test? Our challenge sponsor, MetaCTF, is taking episode challenges to the next level. With MetaCTF challenges, you'll get instant rewards and leadership updates so you can earn points in real time, 2 fresh challenges per episode, more chances to level up, extended completion time so there's no rush, just fun learning, and bonus points for frequent players. Stay engaged, score big. And lastly, you'll get on-demand hints. So if you're stuck, you get a nudge in the right direction. MetaCTF offers real-world cybersecurity challenges in a fun and engaging way. And the best part, it's completely free. To join the action, create an account on the Meta CTF site. If you're 13 or younger, be sure to get a parent permissions first. Visit cryptologicfoundation.org/students/cyberchats for details. Meta CTF is a way to learn cybersecurity in a fun and interactive way.
Oh, I'm in awe of all of you. Definitely see a major theme here, for sure, of pursuing a career that's mission-based, right? Something that really lights a fire in you and allows you to fight the bad guys. Incredible. I've personally experienced adversity, I'd say, as a woman in cybersecurity, sometimes often because I'm younger and I feel like I have to step up or prove myself in a new way. So I have to ask you, what challenges have you faced as women in cybersecurity and how have you overcome them?
That's always an interesting question for me because I think any career is challenging. There's no one challenge that kind of sticks out to me. Um, but I think I've always consistently found an opportunity to get better, and to be better, whether that's being better at a particular skill set or, perfecting my craft, whether that's forensics, whether that's risk management, governance, policy, the federal budget. I mean, I rose through the ranks into the senior executive space. So you kind of you kind of get pulled out of the tactical piece and you kind of get into more business operations, and then you kind of merge everything that you've learned. And so I would say every day was a challenge, whether that was the pace of the adversary and trying to, structure your mindset for a near peer adversary that's getting better and better every day. We get better and better every day in the United States as well. So there's always a constant challenge. I was a mother. I'm still a mother, but I was a mother at that time. Divorced mother of three. So I was also being a mom with young kids, and pursuing a cybersecurity career that is much like doctors and nurses. It demands a lot of time. And so there was always some challenges getting over them, no matter what the challenge was. It probably was my support group. It was, people who you meet along the journey who have some of those either same challenges or different challenges. And for me, you would be surprised how far an encouraging word would go, like how motivating that would be for me. So I don't really like to answer that question with the standard cliche of the many different challenges that are there, because I think there's always going to be challenges in everything that we do. I think how you get through them is what creates that integrity, and it definitely builds character. But I know that whether that was feeling like I was being left out or feeling like I couldn't be heard, feeling like I wasn't good enough, no matter what emotion was attached or any challenge that I faced, I really don't think I'd be where I am today and have the mindset that I have or the accomplishments without a team of Marines and a team of women and men in the background, always encouraging me and lending me either a helping hand or encouraging word. So that's how I overcome the many challenges that you're going to face in any career, especially one like cybersecurity, where you may walk in the room and maybe there's a Georgiana and maybe there's not. 9 times out of 10, it won't be, right? And so being that only woman in the room can be very, very disheartening and challenging within itself. So being able to rally around people and build that board of directors is what I like to call them, that personal board of directors that you have. If you don't do that, then, cybersecurity is going to be, like Daria just stated, it's going to be a challenge if you don't stick to it, stick with it. So that's how I overcame the many challenges that we don't have enough time today to talk about.
Well, to follow up on that, that's actually a major concern of a lot of young professionals in the field is they work remote or sometimes they're in person, but they don't really know anyone and they feel isolated. So I have to ask, how did you build that support group?
Well, I like to not ignore that being in the military makes it a lot easy to meet people and build a network. I have a lot of colleagues that don't have a military background, and it can be very difficult. Conferences is the best, I think way, because most of the time when people show up to conferences, they're ready and willing to give you their business card. LinkedIn is a great space that once you get business cards to break the ice. But I also run into I work with a lot of youth, and I run into a lot of children who come from backgrounds where they may be a little shy. They may be a little bit of, introverted and want to be an extrovert, but don't have the tools and sometimes the confidence. And so you have to kind of ease into it. You got to find those different places where those either conferences, clubs, organizations that are reaching out to children consistently and get involved. um it's this thing that they say in church: if you take one step, God will take two. It's kind of like that. Just try one little time to talk to one person, and then don't be afraid to let them know that it's really difficult to meet other people. Can you introduce me to someone else who can help me build the network, and as I'm trying to pursue. um and I think that's really the only way. You have to get over that fear. And you do that by going to places where you're welcomed into people who are trying to get to know either the budding talent that we have now or the next generation of cyber. You have to start where you're going to be welcome, because God forbid that you go to a space where you're trying to network and it's not welcoming, and that can be very discouraging, and it could make you give up. So lots of institutions. I encourage all of the youth that I have to seek out many different organizations that focus on youth and STEM academies. There's many resources out there. I do have a website where I kind of put a lot of information out there. I follow a lot of people who work with youth and adults. Anyone aspiring to be in cyber, it's more of having the confidence to talk to just that one person, and then that other person reaches out to another person on your behalf, and they become kind of like that mentor or that champion. And you just keep going, and you don't get discouraged if you run into someone who's not wanting to be helpful, because I really believe for every one person that doesn't want to be helpful, there's probably two or three that do want to be helpful.
Absolutely. I love that. Thank you for that reminder that we need to put ourselves out there. Does anyone else want to share a challenge that they've faced?
Well, I'll just say that I think it's important to mention how tight the Marines are. I was very lucky to work with the Marines down at Quantico for a couple years, and I can say from my experience, it's the closest group of people in a culture that you're going to work with. I've worked with the Army, I've worked with civilians, I've worked with Air Force, Space Force, law enforcement, scientists, and Marines are really family. So it's a really
That's
special
right.
culture.
It really is. I don't discount, and I don't ever take for granted that, that love and affection that is shown. And when you say that in the workplace, sometimes it's weird, but like in the Marine Corps, I literally would see guys hugging each other saying, "I love you, brother. Take care of yourself. Be safe getting home." Like, you would see that. And when you had a problem, they all band together. I did have that experience very early in my Army career in the medical corps, but I also have lots of family members who are in the military, and they did not have always have those kinds of positive experiences. So you're absolutely right, Georgiana. It's it's really different, and I don't say that to be braggadocious or anything, but it's nothing I have ever experienced. And if you would have told me that that was the culture of the Marine Corps, I would not have believed it. I would have just said, "Oh, that's your experience." But I have been made a believer, and I experienced it for myself, and it's something that I get on my knees honestly, and I am very grateful and thankful to God for. And I wish everyone in the world could have that kind of experience.
Yep. So also, I wanted to say, in I guess my own experience in what I would consider it more personality versus being a woman, because I'm sure as a man you can have some of these issues as well, and you have some women who are super dominant. I'm more of a analytical introvert, so I like to listen. I like to get my thoughts together before I make a statement. I'm not as aggressive as some of my male counterparts that I've seen throughout my career. But then again, there's some super aggressive women out there too. And the way I've combated that is maybe in meetings, I have an idea, I have a thought, I have a disagreement. I'll air it, but then I follow up with writing. And I think writing is a great way to ensure that you're heard, and you get the point across that you're looking for. So I'm not maybe the loudest person in the room. So the loudest person can be the loudest person in the room. But that's not going to change the information that's coming from me or them. But when you put it on paper, you remove those personalities, and it's a great way to ensure that you are being heard.
I like that one. I might have to try that.
The only thing I might add, very briefly, is I think women that I've spoken with in my cohort have internalized sometimes this perception that we are not allowed to make mistakes. And if we are allowed to make mistakes, they have to be far fewer when they do occur. So the only challenge I would really add to this is making sure that you're not standing in your own way. There are a lot of opportunities to sit at the table together, and cybersecurity in particular requires risk taking. It requires those leaps with the knowledge that you've accumulated, the plans of action that you're developing with your team, and sometimes you're going to get it wrong. And that is not a reflection on capability. It's not a reflection on growth. It just means that you tried something. So I would definitely add that for any people, specifically women, because that's the focus of this conversation. But if any individual wants to get into cyber or wants to grow in cyber and they're intimidated or, making themselves feel smaller, that's something you're doing to yourself. And you can stop that by changing your internal dialogue. I've certainly had to work on that myself, and there's plenty of space here for everybody. So we need more people. I think there are almost 3 million unfilled jobs in cyber. We don't have time for these internal challenges. Like this.
Well, I'll add to that. So I'm also an adjunct professor, and I tell my students, focusing on the female students, really, that just through experience and talking to other people, I can see that, and I think I've heard this too. If you have a job requisition out there or a promotion opportunity, and it has 10 criteria, a woman's generally going to look at it and say, I meet 9 of those. I'm an expert at it, but that 10th piece, I'm not that good. I'm only like 80%. I'm not perfect. But then a man will look at those 10 qualification pieces and say, I can do one of them at like 30%. I can't do the rest. I'll figure it out. I'm going to apply. And then the woman ends up not applying. And so that causes a lot of issues. Like, why am I the smarter person with this person over me? It's because you didn't apply. You didn't put yourself out there, and you didn't have the confidence. So, kind of combining what both of you just said, you really have to put yourself out there, and you have to build the confidence. Worst case, you don't get the position. We weren't going to get it when you didn't apply anyway. So do it.
Absolutely. I think I want to piggyback on that a little bit because I just finished the Becoming Everything You Are conference up in Baltimore, and it was over 600 kids that we did this speed mentoring where we switched. The kids stayed stationary at the tables, and then we switched, and it was over 600 children. It was one of the most rewarding experiences. And I go to this conference every year. It's always in February, right before the President's Day holiday. And I always get the same question. How do you build confidence? Some of the young ladies, and they're from all backgrounds. Some of them would say, how do you even know that it's a confidence problem? Like it could, like I'm saying, I don't know how to do these things. And then sometimes it's confidence. It's you don't know that you know how to do it because you won't even try because you think you can't. And so those two questions always stump me. Like how do you recognize that you have a confidence problem? And then when you recognize it, or if you are lucky enough for someone to, mentor you and say, oh, we got to work on building your confidence. And one young lady said, Miss Spinks, I hear you about being confident, but how do I build my confidence when I look around in the room and I'm consistently told that because I don't like math, I'll never be able to work in cybersecurity. So there were some shocking questions and jolting questions that came out of it. And it made me think. That was the first time that a 14-year-old made me pause on a question. Usually I can spit something out and I have a great answer. But I said, yeah, how do you build confidence? And so I told her, I said, you stumped me there. And I gave her, we went around the room and she gave me a little bit more time. And I came back and I told her, I said, I think that I built my confidence again by going to talk to people in spaces where I wanted to be. Like I talked to people who were in computers. I talked to my teachers saying, at first I wanted to be a lawyer. So I talked to them, I want to be a lawyer. And I started to be around people who also had the tools and knew the things that I would need as I'm pursuing. So I think, Georgiana and Daria, the things that we can all be instrumental in is, sharing how do you build confidence? Like how do you, I would be interested in pulling a thread on how do you build your confidence? Because it really stumped me in answering that question. I really didn't have a solid answer like I usually do.
I'll give you my 2 cents on that. So, just like I think everyone out there, I'll have confidence issues, and I'll have to stop and reflect on my own experience, what I've done. And it's not, do I have experience in this? Do I know how to do this? Have I done it before? No. But have I ever just let myself fail, or do I figure it out? Do I put in the
Right.
work, and do I have the personality that's going to, triumph over it? And I can
Right.
also look around and say, maybe I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I'm definitely not the dumbest person in the room. So
Absolutely.
I think
That's
I
awesome.
can get this done. And I always tell people, you might start off, tell my students, you're going to start off, you don't know anything, but I guarantee after you've been doing this for a year, you're the expert. So you have to give yourself that year to go through it and learn whatever it is, and allow that growth. Step out of your
Mm,
comfort zone and grow.
yes. Love it.
Also, just remembering that if there is a confidence issue, oftentimes it stems from some concern of, am I allowed to be here? Am I allowed to say anything? What if I get it wrong? What if someone else should be speaking on this subject? And just remembering that we are supposed to be in the room. We're going to receive enough subliminal messaging throughout our entire lives that women are underrepresented, minority communities are underrepresented. That has been statistically proven time and time again. And the more we see that, and then other themes that end up building on top of that fact, it's really easy to internalize this concept that, okay, maybe this is going to be harder for me on principle. And do I even have the energy right now to
Right.
try? And I think deconstructing that subliminal messaging is really difficult, and we all have to work on it every single day. But when I hear people that I believe are confident and they're speaking, sometimes they say something really simple, or sometimes they say something that I have a lot of questions about, and I really want to understand, okay, I hear you, you're speaking quite clearly and loudly, and you're dominating this conversation, but what are you actually trying to do? And being willing to ask those questions and being willing to be wrong. Again, like someone can come up with a great plan and say it with gusto and get everybody on board, but charisma is only half of it. You need substance, you need the backing, and that means even just asking the questions and proposing counter ideas, or being supportive, but then trying to get to the bottom of how are we all going to make something actionable out of this conversation. There's a lot of benefit to having multiple perspectives, and you can be an introvert, you can be an extrovert, but having that analytical, quiet, just, okay, I'm observing something that I would like to unwrap. And it's okay to do that in front of an audience or later in writing one on one, in a professional way, obviously. But I think there are a lot of steps we
Yeah.
can each take to just deconstruct these notions that we're going to have a harder time by default. Who cares? Have a harder time. Just at least give it a try.
Yeah. I like the way Georgiana highlighted, expertise and developing, learning and knowing you're going to grow. That's what helped me with my confidence. I became very good at one thing first, and I stayed within that space, and I started out in asset management, and I loved it because at that time it was a great need. And I got really good at, the logistics of understanding why the serial number needs to match the laptop. And when that encryption is downloaded, we need to be able to track, all the way back to the staging facility where that computer came from and which encryption it's running and who's it assigned to. Very simple wording, and it's very simple work, but it's laborious. It's not difficult and it's not complex, but it's very laborious. And I got very good at that. And so all my conversations became about asset management. Like, oh my God, we have people who we don't have the right labels on these computers. There's no way for us to have barcodes and track. And then that turned into RFID tagging. And I was like, well, what is RFID tagging? So I got really good at one thing. And then the confidence that I initially did not have, and I really didn't feel like I was belonging in the room. I found something that I liked, and I got really great at it, and I started conversing with people, and then they were like, "What do you mean?" I mean, something as simple as, "Why doesn't that laptop have the right ID tag on it?" And you would be surprised. People really wanted to hear about that. And it ended up being a big deal, right? So I do like that, the opportunities of growth, and so yeah, I was really interested in hearing how you guys would have answered that confidence question.
Shifting gears a bit, thinking about your vast amount of experience in the fields. Right now, cybersecurity, women, we only make up about 25% of the workforce, sometimes less, depending on which survey you're looking at. So based on your experience, how do you think the cybersecurity industry has changed for women over the past decade? And where do you think we're heading in the future?
So I'll jump in on this one first. Over the past decade, I've been in this field, like I said, almost 30 years. I've early in my career, the first 20 years, usually always the only woman. I'm like I said, math oriented, very analytical, have an engineering brain. So it's just not a field that is generally attracted to women who like to nurture and maybe more going to the healthcare, nursing, decorating, just again very very generalized topics of what people like. But I like the analytical piece of it. In around the 10 years ago, we started seeing a big push for getting women into the field. So there's more outreach. There's Girls Who Code. There's groups, support groups, mentorships, finding people. And where do I think it's going? I think this is a really interesting question, because when you look at computer science, you look at cybersecurity, I think intuitively you think very, very binary, 1 and 0. Again, back to the engineering brain, super boring. I don't want to code. I don't want to go through numbers. I do, but not all women do. However, with the rise of artificial intelligence and the way you're looking at these large language models and the relationship around them, I feel that women are going to bring in more of that relational context of meaning amongst data. So right now it's very logical, but again, very stereotypical. I think if you talk about men and jokes of women, they find women to be very illogical, but they're going to bring that illogical piece to the computing world. So it actually starts to become more that artificial intelligence is growing more on the how do people react emotionally? How do you come to answers based on emotion versus strictly logic? And I don't think there's a lot of that. So I think there's going to be a growing need and inclusion of feminine thought into that future. So I don't know if that's too sci-fi, but I definitely see the data relationships changing and moving into that direction.
That's a great point. I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I think the data science field is going to be saturated it is saturated with opportunity. I agree with Georgiana that you're seeing a transit, or I keep saying opportunity because I think that's really what it is. Um, and the diversity of thought when it comes to whether that's analytics, whether that's data mining or data scientist. Um, whether that's deductive reasoning, like we have digitized so many times and continuing to transform that sometimes that lost art of deductive reasoning and critical thinking isn't in the room. And so I think you're going to start to see that a lot more, because it's not always, like Georgiana said, it's not right now. We are in a world of digital transformation and revolution that's not always about zeros and ones. I respect the zeros and ones, but as a senior executive and in leadership positions, I found myself having to regroup and go back because I had a general officer saying, "What does this mean? You have the data. You have it all in these nice, pivot charts and single panes of glass. But how do we make decisions on this data?" And then after a while, there's so much data, then you need critical thinking to figure out, how do you find that needle in the haystack? So I think there's um, plenty of opportunities that previously I think we're kind of one-sided. It was more of the scientific side. It was more very, very zeros and ones, software engineering and programming, and that has its place. But I am also seeing recruiters looking for kids who can come in and mission plan, especially in the military. How can we plan a mission? How can we have metrics? How do we measure success in cybersecurity? What does success look like? So I think we're seeing um, different genres being introduced into cybersecurity because of the digital transformation. Everything is digital. I mean, I didn't I didn't know how critical a finance manager was in cybersecurity until I started working in you know criminal crimes when people were stealing, they were stealing data from either credit cards, or now people are hacking debit cards and things like that. So a finance manager who had no cyber background was able to walk me through all of the things that happens in the bank, which then helped me understand, well, that's how the bad guys getting in, right? And so you're continuously seeing a need for more than just the scientific side of cybersecurity. And I think it will continue to happen.
I would definitely agree with both Georgiana and Renata that we're going to see a lot more opportunities open up for women and minority groups in general. And that's just because there is a need, there is a demand for more talent, for more backgrounds, for more approaches to the problem solving that we're trying to pursue. And at some point, this industry is no longer going to be viewed as a boys' club. Hopefully, we're approaching that era already, but I think we're going to start unraveling that with time. And that's going to require a rethinking as well of how we look at security and cyber and how we discuss these topics and just engage in dialogue with each other. We're going to have a lot more women in this space, and that's a great pivot for a lot of us in this industry because it's just going to improve the numbers, the statistics. We're going to have more people, and we're going to see a lot of positive dividends. And I bring that up because I think women are also going to be positioned to support each other even more. And that's really critical, to find allies, to be an ally, to lift each other up. And I don't mean that in some like woo kind of way, but just ensuring that your colleagues have opportunities to thrive and be successful. So that's just going to continue to evolve. And then the onus is going to be on us to extend that to young people in the field, to be those allies and to help people rise through the ranks the same way others have helped us. And I'm excited for that. I think that's going to be really fantastic. And it's just going to improve our output, and we're going to see so much more success in this space as a result.
You're absolutely right. We need more women, period. And one of the major barriers is work-life balance. So I have to ask, what advice would you give to women navigating challenges such as work-life balance and thinking about their employers as well? What could employers do to make a more inclusive work environment for women?
Oh, so I was at my most, I guess, difficult time in my career and maybe not difficult, just stressful. Like Renata, I have two kids. I have two sons. They're now 23 and 24. So they
Mm.
both left home at 17 and 18. Also enlisted in the Army. So they both went in, and now they're out. Now they're doing their own thing. Matter of fact, one is a GPS pen tester. So I'm super excited, and the other
Oh,
one's now in
wow.
school studying cybersecurity. But when they were younger, I I wanted to be more of a mom. I wanted to be at home with them. They were always the priority, but I did have to work full time. So that's just difficult. And when you talk about like difficulty, it's not just balancing the two, but I was I was a young mother, nursing in bathrooms where there's no nursing room. So having to be in meetings, and that I think that was the biggest obstacle in my career as a woman, is like, how do you deal with the nursing and pumping when you're working and you have kids? But I think most organizations, companies that I've seen now have nursing rooms, and they have accommodations. The maternity leave, paternity leave is longer now, so that's a little help. That's
Right.
more helpful. So I think things have changed since I've come up, and things have gotten better. Now, especially since COVID, there's so much work from home that you can do in a lot of organizations. If not full time, at least temporary. So that's another benefit. And then when you are at home, um, I think this field is one of the easier ones to get ahead in, because again, we're not bricklayers, so we don't have to be there in person for a lot of things. You can do your studying at home. You can do your networking at home. You can do research at home. There's a lot of stuff you can do at home to get ahead while you're at home with your sick kids, or while you're on maternity leave. So you always have that connection to the field where you can continue to grow, and it's not like you're like, oh, I just can't do anything because I'm not in the office. Even if you work in a classified environment, because I know that's why I work in a skiff, but you can still learn things outside of the skiff.
That's right. 100%. I totally agree with the thing that Georgiana just mentioned. Um, I think that organizations still have some work to do in some of those areas. I think COVID-19 was a blessing in disguise based on the way we were forced to think of how we work differently. Um, Not a blessing for the catastrophic effects that it had on us from a healthcare perspective. Um, but how we got through that and how we're still getting through, people who are still suffering from COVID-19 and all kinds of respiratory diseases and things like that. We are just an evolving country of people, and we all are dealing with, aging parents and things like that. So things are happening, and it's forcing us to think differently. It's forcing us to evolve. Things are forcing us to change, and I think some organizations are doing a great job at changing and enabling single parents or mothers from dual parenting households. Because even if you do have mom and father roles at home, there's still challenges, especially if you have two working adults. I mean, you name it, the challenges are there when you have a family to take care of. So I think there's still some work that needs to be done. Aside from the HR portion, I think what we can do ourselves is be honest with ourselves first. Be honest that it's okay to be Superwoman and Superman, but both of them, Superman has to fly up to the sun for strength. So sometimes you got to get, some strength from your support group, get to know your kids. I had a support group where my son, his friends. So I got to know their parents and let their parents know that, this is what I do. I'm pursuing this career. How can we all band together as moms and dads, and how can we, make sure that we can support each other? So I did that. I've talked to people who said they don't even know their neighbor. So you have to take that advice with a grain of salt. But you definitely have to have a support channel. You have to have a support group outside of work, but you also, if you can, talk to your manager, inform them of different things that we're experiencing. Um, I don't think you'll ever find balance. I think you'll find work-life satisfaction if you focus on that, but I don't think the scales will ever balance out. At least that was not my experience. but I found ways to get through it. I set goals. I communicated with lots of people in my family, lots of people in my military family, lots of people in my um, immediate family that were, friends of kids and mothers of the the friends is the big one. Like my girls and my son, their parent, their friends, I would make sure I engage with them, and they were very, oftentimes it would be my weekend to take the boys to the movies, or on Tuesdays and Thursdays you're picking them up from football practice, and so we just banded together. That was what was helpful for me. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, but those were two things that I saw benefited me.
I want to share one of the funniest things I've ever heard another woman say in the office. I was working at the Pentagon, and it was during the Iraq War, IEDs, people dying. We're doing, very important work. And
Hmm.
the person I was working for at the time was like, all right, we're going to stay late and we're going to do this stuff and we're going to, try to get these people back. It was during the beheadings back in the early 2000s. And one of the ladies said, yeah, I don't have a wife. I am the wife. So I need to get home and my kids are in
I need to get
daycare.
home.
I'm like,
Hmm.
yeah, I need a wife.
Hmm.
Yeah, so it
Yes.
was, yeah, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a parent, so I have nothing but respect for Georgiana and Renata for raising children, especially in this country. But I was raised by a single mom, and she definitely had to rely on her support network, and she worked hours and hours of every day. I wouldn't see her sometimes till really late at night. And, um, families adapt and you learn to make it work with your communities, your families, whatever you need. But unfortunately, from a familial perspective, work-life balance in this country is completely dependent on the person who's being affected. We have very
Yeah.
little support just from a structural sense. If you look at maternity or even paternity leave in this country, it's limited to months. And that's a best case scenario. And this has improved, obviously, over the years. This is an improvement in many ways. But compared to other countries that are considered first world developed, et cetera, we are lagging with our statistics. There are several advocates and policymakers who are trying to push for more structural change that would enable support for families, childcare, maternity leave, whatever is necessary, but we're a long ways from landing on any solutions right now. So I think, if anything, if you find that your employer is understanding or sympathetic, perhaps they can give you as an individual the support you need for work-life balance. And if they can take it a step further, they have the resources, can find a group to support. You can find a way to encourage Congress to consider these measures more seriously. But that's obviously more of an advocacy step. Um, it's tough. And I think even for those without kids, I've worked in organizations where when I have been the youngest in the room and I didn't have kids, that also presented a separate challenge because then I would end up staying a lot later at work because I knew my colleagues had to go take care of whatever was at home. And I do know a lot of people face that challenge as well. And it's hard because we all have to support each other and there's no great answer at this time. And that sucks. I hate saying that, but I think, again, this is where it becomes really important to advocate for yourself the same way Renata and Georgiana have been their entire careers, and to find allies, as they've been saying, to be an ally, to find that community. And um, I don't know what balance is, but if you like where you are in life and you're happy, Renata, you nailed it. I don't think I've ever known balance in my career, and I'm only about 8 years in, so Uh, we have each other, and that sounds really corny, but that's kind of the only way to do it right now. So find your people.
I really appreciate the honesty here because, as mentioned, this is a concern that women really do have. Whether it's pursuing a career in cybersecurity or sometimes going up for promotion, knowing that they're maybe planning to have a baby or whatever the case is, but these are real concerns. So thank you again for just being so candid. And we're almost out of time, so I do want you to leave us with one more thought. This interview has been incredible. But what advice would you give to young women or girls who are interested in pursuing a career in cybersecurity?
I would say do it. Absolutely do it. It's fun. It's exciting. It's mission oriented. I think there's a marketing issue. So again, programming is sitting in a back room with numbers. It's not appealing to a lot of young girls. But if they see the mission, they see the impact, they see the excitement in it, then I think it's more enticing. I always recommend the movie 0 Days to my students and to young people because it brings in so many different dynamics of cybersecurity and it shows you the real world application and that good guy, bad guy excitement piece of it. But most importantly, it really provides you, I think this is important for, especially for women, it provides you with that sense of financial independence. So, Renata said she's a divorced mom. I was also divorced. You never know where your life's going to take you on that personal track, and you may have kids, you may not have kids, but you want to make sure that you can always support yourself. I think that's very important for every woman.
Yeah, I agree with Georgiana. I say do it. Um, expect there to be challenges. I think today's theme of making sure you have community, that's with any career. So do it. Don't be afraid. Start out with knowing that you can, and yes, you are good enough. Tell yourself that every day. Um, and just understand that this is a space where we are needed, and this is a space where you may have to fall and find your tribe somewhere else or multiple places. There's no straight line to the ascension of your career in cyber, but I say do it. It's like the Nike check, just do it. Find what you're good at and get better at it, and then find something else that you're good at and get better at it, and just keep getting gooder and gooder and gooder, greater and greater and greater, because cyber really is an evolving field, and there's countless opportunities where I met someone the other day who is an artist, and he works in cybersecurity at one of the universities, and I myself asked him, what are you doing in cyber if you're getting an art degree with a concentration in cybersecurity? And he wanted to study how the theft is happening of intellectual property. Like, I was like, wow. I didn't think about replicas out there, and they're using computers now to replicate, and there's ways you can find out if how people are replicating, and you can catch the bad guy through the systems that they use. But that's neither here nor there. But that would be my advice, to do it, and set your goals and make community, and make sure you find those different mentors. And if you're hesitant, find those different communities and different groups that are out there for children, youth, people transitioning into the cyber career. There's a lot of mentoring and championship institutions out there that I think you can find.
Yeah, cyber cuts into every industry that you can think of. So it's always going to be relevant no matter what your interest is. And it's probably the fastest growing field. It desperately needs more people, and we don't have time to waste. We need more bodies. We need more curiosity. And um, if you have any interest in problem solving, any interest in being part of a bigger mission, being part of a bigger community, this is it. This is the place to land, and you don't want to get left behind. And the only thing that I would add is there's this book by Matthew McConaughey called Green Lights that a lot of people I've spoken to, happen to be men, by the way, who seem to be reading this book, are a big fan. And I just got through the intro, and I just remember hearing a lot of advice about turning your red lights into green lights, which, if taken out of context, could probably be very problematic. But in this instance, just don't allow resistance to deter you from your dream and your path. If a door closes, a window will open. And I mean that in a very true sense, because a lot of people get turned away. They think that one no or one rejection, or I didn't apply because I thought I was underqualified, all of these things, These are just obstacles, some of which we place in front of ourselves. And there is a place for all sorts of minds and personalities in this field. We just need more people to take that leap with themselves and find a green light. Go do what Matthew McConaughey said, and it's working for a lot of people apparently. So just find that energy in yourself and take the plunge. It'll be worth it.
All right. Just kidding. Daria, Renata, Georgianna, thank you so much for your time. I'm so grateful for all the nuggets that you were able to share today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope this conversation sparked your curiosity and got you excited about the world of cybersecurity.